Hello and welcome to my very first Blender tutorial. We're going to be learning what's currently showing on the screen, so yeah, let's just get going. Okay, so you're going to click Edit, and then Preferences, and then make sure you're in the Add-ons tab right here. Make sure you have Community Add-ons enabled, then search for Extra. You're going to find this one, Add Mesh Extra Objects. You have to make sure that Add Mesh is on, because we're going to be using some of those. So exit out of that tab, press A, and delete. Now everything is gone. So Shift A and then Mesh, and then you can find all these extra options that you normally wouldn't find, and then go to Gears, and specifically the worm gear, and yeah, it looks pretty good. But there's a few things we need to do in this menu down there on the bottom left. So click on that and change the number of teeth to 64. It actually makes it have less teeth. I don't know why that happens, but it works, so we'll just leave it that way. Click out of that, and before we do anything else, we need to make it a little bit taller, because this is kind of short, and if you notice the animation, it's pretty tall. The spiral is pretty tall, so we have to do that. This part takes a bit of time, but it definitely makes it look a lot better. So let's do it. So we're going to click on this and then go into front view. So we're going to go Control, and then on the numpad press 1, and so now you're going to be looking at it this way. Now press Shift D and then press Z so that you only move it up on the Z axis. Now get it so it's kind of touching that edge there. Then just zoom into the part where they're supposed to meet. You'll notice they don't actually meet. So you're just going to go G, Z, and just move it down a bit closer, just as close as you really can, because we are going to weld this together later. But this is just to make the welding a lot easier and so that you don't have any problems when merging them together. So then you might notice that these are not actually perfectly aligned. This does not continue up like a normal worm gear. So just press R, Z, and rotate it until it looks nice. I picked a bad perspective to do this from. That looks close enough. It doesn't have to be perfect because, again, we're going to weld it. So that's going to make it just one object. But now what we're going to do is select this one and then select the bottom one, so by shift selecting both, right? And then I'm going to go Control J to join them into one mesh. Then you're going to tab into edit mode and then deselect this, then go on the top right, toggle X-ray, or you could just press Alt Z, and then just try and find that middle area, that one right there. See that line? This one, that's about where you joined them. And if you can't tell, then there's another way. If you zoom in closely on like one of these, you'll notice that this is actually two vertices that are very, very close together, right? But they aren't actually just one vertice, or one vertex. So select this row or line of vertices. It just goes around the whole shape. Then go into the object data properties, and so you'll notice these two vertex groups, tips and valleys. So you're going to add one more. You can name it whatever you want and just assign. So now this center thing is going to be assigned to that vertex group called group. Then you're going to go into the modifiers and then add a modifier, and the one on the bottom you're going to click weld. And then the distance you should probably set to 0.05. I think that's what I made it. And then set the vertex group to group so that now it's kind of weld together. If you do have any shaping issues, like over here I am getting some, I believe. Let's get out of X-ray mode real quick. Okay, there's just some mild shaping issues there. You can just decrease the distance, so something like 0.1. There, that's much better. So now you can go to this drop down here, click apply, and now it is all one mesh, and these are just one vertex. The singular of vertices is vertex. How do I not remember that? Anyways, now one thing you might notice is that this shape is kind of blocky. It's not very smooth. So we're going to change that by right clicking and shade smooth. Click shade smooth. But now you'll notice that the teeth are kind of rounded, and that's not how normal worm gears are. So we're going to go down into the object data properties and then go down to this drop down that says normals, and then click auto smooth. Perfect. So now these teeth look a lot nicer. They look like normal worm gear teeth. So now we have that done. And now what we have to do is make it inverse. Alright, now Steam, go away. So, yeah, we just have to make it inverse, right? Because it looks more like a diamond shape than anything else. So now we're just going to go Shift A and then go down to Empty Plane Axes. Then you move it anywhere along the x-axis by just pressing GX, moving it somewhere, doesn't matter how much. Click back on the worm gear, go to Modifiers, add another modifier, this time a mirror modifier. So it looks fine, but the problem is that these are now part of one mesh. It's going to be very difficult to split them into two. So you just click Mirror Object, Empty. So now it's very separate from each other. Now go into the drop down, click Apply, then tab into Edit Mode, press P by loose parts. So this is going to separate it by loose parts. So these two are separate parts. Then you can delete the empty. You don't need that anymore. Now, one thing you'll notice is the origin or the actual 0, 0 of this object is way over here on the cursor. That's because they were originally part of the same mesh, but then we split them. But this still has the origin over there, so we got to fix that. So now you're going to select both of them. So shift click on that one, press F3, and type set origin, right? And you're going to find the one at the bottom, set origin to geometry. Now once you've clicked that, you can select any of them, go into the object properties, and hover over the location and just hit backspace. That'll reset it to 0. Do the same thing with this one, just resets it to 0. Perfect. So now you'll notice that it's an intersecting mesh, and for once that is actually a good thing. Normally you do not want your meshes to intersect, but this is a rare instance where that is actually a good thing. So great, this is what the spiral is going to be. Now before we do any of the animation, we do have to add in a background. So we're going to go Shift A, Mesh, all the way down to Extras, and then click Honeycomb. So now you can just adjust the number of rows and columns. I think the number of rows was 64, the number of columns was 32. Might be the other way around. Yeah, I think it's the other way around. So 32 columns, 64 rows, or 64 columns, 32 rows. Anyways, now you're gonna go to you're gonna do the location, and on Y you're gonna set this to 2. Okay, and then on the rotation on the X, I want to set that to 90. Okay, no, there. So we have this. Yeah, I think you can turn down the number of columns. Hold up. Alright, dealt with my friends. Okay, but one thing you'll notice is that this is looking pretty flat, right? There's no thickness. So what we're going to do is tab into edit mode, so just press tab. Right now you're in vertex select. To clean it up, you're going to just go into face select. Oh my god. Alright, so you're going to go into face select, and if you accidentally deselected like I did, you can just press A, that selects all. Oh my god. Alright, and then just press E to extrude. Just kind of extrude until you get a nice thickness that you like. If it's not what you want it to be, you can just press G, Y to make it whatever, right? Whatever you feel like. Just get it to something that you like. It really all depends on what you feel like doing. Yeah, just find something that works. I think this looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, if you want to, you can have made this a little bit smaller so that it fits within the dimensions of this. I don't have to worry about that because my computer's more than fast enough, so I don't have to worry too much about optimization, especially for something pretty simple like this. Anyways, now we're going to add one last thing, which is a plane in the back, because the honeycomb isn't actually completely solid. You can see through all the little hexagons. So, sorry, my throat is being weird. So then Shift A, Mesh, and Plane. Then you're going to go location on the Y is going to be 3. Move it all the way back there. Then rotation on the X is also going to be 90. And then now you can just press S to scale it up however much you'd like. I think that looks fine. That looks good. And just make sure that when you're looking at it like this, you don't see the edge of like a plane of the honeycomb without the plane. So if you do see that, you can just press SX to scale it only on the X, or SZ to only scale it on the Z. But other than that, that's all the meshes that we need to add. So now we're just going to do some quick and simple animation of the worm gears. So we have worm gear and worm gear 001. So let's go to the first worm gear. And this is the one we're going to be animating first. Now before we do anything else, we're going to change the end frame to 120. And then we're going to go into the, I believe, render properties. Oh wait, no. Sorry, we're going to be going into the output properties and change the frame rate to 30. So now it's a 30 FPS animation. Great. So now what we're going to do is just press I and then rotation. So now it's just going to keyframe the rotation so that it starts there. Then press this jump to endpoint button at the bottom, and then press the right arrow key once. Then press R, Z, 360. So now it just does a full 360. I, rotation. So now you have 2 keyframes, and it's going to spin. Right? That looks pretty good. It's going to spin that way. But it looks like it's going down, but you can also tell that it's spinning. And we don't want that. The illusion that we're trying to create is that it's just going straight down infinitely. So you're going to have to select the other worm gear, go back to the first frame, and press I, rotation. Then do the same thing by going to the next frame and hit the right arrow key. And this time press R, negative 360. Whoops, I should not have done that. Control Z, it's R, Z, negative 360. That's much better. I, rotation. So now if we go just into this head-on view, click that. Looks like it's going down. We have that cool weird effect in the back. Great. So yeah, that's all the animation that we actually have to do. Now we're just going to start working on the textures. So go into the viewport shading tab. So everything's this blinding white. So we're going to change that. So we're going to select the first worm gear, and then go into material properties, click new. Then you're going to press add material slot, click new again, and do that one last time. So now let's go to the first material. We're not going to change too much here, just change the base color, set this to a maximum white, full white, and then go to this one, make it the max brightness as well, but now we're going to go for kind of a dark orange color. Right, not red, but kind of a darkish orange. Okay, we don't want too much yellow in there. So then go to the base color on the third material, and this time change it to a yellowish orange. Something that is still definitely yellow, but you don't want it to be too yellow because then it ends up looking really harsh and annoying. You also want to make sure the brightness is at the max there. Great, now go to the second worm gear, and this time we only need 2 materials on this one. So click, oh, hold on, let me double check which one it is. Okay, so never mind. I did that by pressing H and then Alt H to unhide it. So we're going to go back into this worm gear. This white one does not actually need to exist. So we can get rid of that by pressing the minus. Then we go to this worm gear and then go to the browse material. Now go to this material, press the plus, this material, and then the orange, right? Press the plus again on the yellow. So the reason I did that is because only one of the worm gears has to have any white on it. The other one's only going to be orange and yellow. So really quick, I'm going to select worm gear 001, press H, and turns out I actually did do it wrong anyways. So now we're going to go back to this worm gear, press the plus, select material 001, drag it up there, then Alt H, and go to worm gear 001, and then remove this material. Great. So now we're going to go to the first worm gear. I'm just going to press these arrows to move it to the top, make it the dominating material there, because that's what it should be, even though it's not doing that. Anyways, so now we're going to go select, we're going to tab into edit mode, go to select, random, right? So we don't want it to select 50%, so we're going to make it something a little more reasonable, like 40%, 30%, something like that. Now, make sure you have the white material selected, click assign. Select random, do that again. Now down here, change the random seed, click the yellow one, make it something entirely different. Whoops. So you have to click away from it before you do that. So select random, pick something, add the yellow. Great. But you'll notice that this just doesn't seem to have enough color, right? So we're going to tab back into edit mode and just do the whole thing again. So select random, pick something, select the white one. You do want a little bit more white on this one because there's not a single bit of white on the other worm gear. So now select this worm gear, go select, or tab into edit mode, sorry, and then click select random. This time make it 50%, and then click yellow, and then assign. Tab out of it, and yeah, it looks pretty good. So now we're going to do the same thing for the honeycomb. Click on the honeycomb, and don't add any new materials, just browse material, click the white one, add, click the orange one, add, and then click the yellow one. Now do the exact same thing we did with the other ones by tabbing into edit mode, clicking select, select random, maybe not 50%, something again more like 40%, I think 45. Then go to yellow, click assign, select, click away, select random, click on the orange, and then click assign. Now I think I've noticed that there's not enough white. You do want to have a fair bit of white on the honeycomb, so let me just hide the plane real quick. Okay, yeah, so this actually does look pretty good. So we just press Alt-H to unhide that. And now for the, I guess, the most difficult texturing. It's not that hard, but I guess it's the most difficult. So then you click on the plane, then go into the shading tab right there. And now, instead of adding a new material, you're going to browse for the original, just the first material, right? And now just move over a little bit, press Shift A, search color R to get a color R to get a color ramp. Then press color into the base color, so plug that in there. Then move over a little more and press Shift A, search gradient. Click on that and then plug the factor into the factor. Great, so now if you look, we kind of have this nice gradient, but here's one problem. It's going sideways. So there's multiple ways to fix this. I think the quickest way really is just RY90 and then just rescaling this along the Z and on the X. It's a lot simpler than doing texture coordinates and whatnot. That's just more headache than it's worth. Now, you might have noticed that we have three main colors rather than just two. So we're going to go on to the color ramp and click plus. And so it still looks the same, right? Because we haven't changed any of the colors. So let's go to the white one. And I'm actually going to leave that white. So just make sure it's at the maximum brightness value. Right? Yeah, it is. Great. Now go to this one. Make this one at the maximum brightness value. But then make it that kind of dark orange. If you want to get the exact color, you can go back into layout. And then click on like the worm gear or something. Click on the orange material. Click on base color. Then go into the hex value. Select it. Control C. Then go back into the shading workspace. Select base color. Go into the hex. Control V. Oh wow, I actually just matched the color. I didn't even need to do that. Oh whoops, wrong material. So you want to go back into layout. Make sure you have the plane selected. Then go back into shading. Then click the orange and then Control V. There. So that's what the color is going to look like there. Then you can do the exact same thing for the yellow one. So go to the yellow, Control C, then select the plane, then go back into the shading workspace. Go to the black, click, hex, Control V. Great. Now it doesn't look perfect. That's because not all of the colors are going to properly show up in frame. But to know what the frame is, we're going to have to add in a camera. So we're going to go back into layout, Shift A, and then find a camera, and then a camera. For you guys, you just click camera. I have some extra add-ons enabled. And now you're going to go into front view, something like this, right? Then scroll and pan and just kind of move a little bit. Don't rotate until you kind of find it so that the bottom and the top don't show up, but everything else does. Right? And then you're going to go Shift, we have the camera in, so Control Alt, and then on the number pad you click 0. I don't know alternative if you don't have a number pad, so get a number pad. But you'll notice that it doesn't show the entirety of this large spiral. So you want to zoom out by clicking on Object Data Properties for the camera, then changing the focal length until you can see pretty much the entire thing, aside from just like the bottom of it, because if you see the bottom, then it kind of breaks the illusion of it being infinite. So we just don't show that, and just kind of marginally increase the focal length until you don't see any of that, just kind of cutting it off. Now you do want to make the Z and X values 0. That just makes it more consistent and kind of has it show exactly the same amount of pillar from the center of the screen. It just makes it look more perfect. So yeah, that's most of it. That's actually all of it, right? Now if you want, you can go back into shading and just kind of make sure you have the plane selected, then go back into shading, and then click on this to go into camera view, and just kind of figure out where you want all of these bars of color to be placed. Kind of want this orange to be a bit down here. I don't want to have too much white. I want to have more yellow and orange, so we'll just move that up a bit. Great, so that looks good. And now again, you can use any color that you feel like. For example, let's say I don't want orange and yellow, right? I can go into here very easily and quickly change this to, like, I don't know, pink and blue. This actually looks pretty good. It looks really good, actually. That's nice. So yeah, we could do that. And if you want, and of course you have to have the background changed, right? That makes it look better. So you can just go here, Control C, and then go and select the plane, go back into shading, change the orange to that blue color, and then you can go back into layout, select the worm gear, copy the pink color, or whoops, Control C, copy the pink color, and then go select the plane, back into shading, change this to that same pink color. Looks nice. It does actually look pretty good, which, yeah, so that's basically all you have to do now. Just to quickly preview, see how the effect's going to look. It's going to look something like this. Now, yeah, that's really it. Now, the reason it looks kind of bad is because you're in the viewport shading and you haven't changed the render engine. So we're going to go over here into render properties, change the render engine to cycles. Now, if you do have a discrete GPU in your computer, I would recommend making a GPU computer. It's going to go faster, but CPU is fast enough. Then go into denoising. Render, you want to make that, check render and change this to optics, that's fastest, and then viewport, change this, it doesn't really matter, automatic, optics, doesn't matter too much. Now we're going to go into viewport shading, so this kind of displays a preview of what it's going to look like, but you'll notice that it's really, really dark. There's no light, it's really dark, and the actual render is not. The reason for that is because we haven't added in an HDRI or an environment texture, so we're going to go into world properties, and change the color to an environment texture, and now everything's pink, which is also not what we want it to be. So click open, and you're going to open an image, an HDRI. It's basically like, an environment. It projects a 360 image of the lighting of an environment into the scene. The one I'm using and I always use is Bethnal Green Entrance. It's like kind of my go-to HDRI. I'll put a link in the description. So just open the image, and then it should load back in, and great, we have nice even lighting. Now, one last step I want to do before setting up the final render is going back into render properties, go to the drop down that says film and click transparent. This just makes the background not there, and I know it doesn't matter too much in this specific render, but it's good to just make a habit out of it, because you might have a nice render of something and then accidentally leave the HDRI in. It's just something to make a habit out of. Another thing that you should make a habit out of is saving, which I did not do, but make sure to save, especially if your computer is prone to crashes and you know it, so that's probably a good thing. I'm going to do some last minute adjustment to the background plane. I just want to change it a bit to make it look a little nicer, have the pink be a little more prevalent there, have the blue come up a bit more, but not the white too much. So yeah, I think this overall looks good. So now we can set up the final render by going into output properties. Now the first thing we want to change is the file format. You do not want it to be a PNG. It's just a large string of PNGs unless you want to combine that and make it into a GIF or GIF, however it's pronounced. but I'm going to go with an FFmpeg video. Now you also want to go to this drop down that says encoding. In this container, you want to change that to MPEG-4, not Matroska. That's an MKV file and not an MP4. MP4 is just something we're all used to, and it's you can embed MP4s in like websites and Discord. It's a lot easier to do that. So now the output quality, you can change that to whatever you feel like, whatever you think your computer could handle. Usually I go with high quality or perceptually lossless. I guess for this one I'm just going to go high quality. It does look really good anyways, so it's still fine if you have medium quality. It still looks fine, especially considering it's a cycles render. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You also want to find a place to save. Yeah, just find really anywhere. I'm just going to go into downloads. I have everything in downloads for some reason. I probably should have put it in documents, but it's fine. I'll just do. Alright, I'm just going to save it in this place. Spiral tutorial. Great. And just make sure you name it, because if you don't, it'll just put like a weird string of, I think it's the date that you made it. I'm not entirely sure, but just make sure you name it something that you can remember. So now this is it. All you have to do is click render, but I'm just going to save because I should have done that a while ago. I didn't. That's fine. Go back into downloads. For some reason it won't let me select that from here, which doesn't make any sense, but I'm just gonna leave it. It's fine. Alright, spiral tutorial. So yeah, this is it. Now all you have to do is just click render and then render animation. I would recommend moving into here because it just looks nicer for me. Render animation. Great. And now it's going to take quite some time to render. I don't know exactly off the top of my head how long, but I do know it's a few hours, so I'd recommend either, rendering this overnight, or as I'm doing, very early, well, not early, but early-ish in the morning, so that it'll be done in time for you to brag and show it to all your friends. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any feedback that you'd like to give, please do that, because I want to know how I can make this better in the future. Yeah, so thank you for stopping by, and hopefully I'll see you around sometime soon.